Hello, I'm Sanko. My name is Mama Hafizi bin Mamshukri, and today I'm going to present my thesis on the texture analysis of sawdust. This is the table of content for my presentation. Chapter 1, Introduction. Background research. Sawdust is a byproduct of woodworking operation during sawing, sanding, mining, and planing. They are largely made of cellulose and lignin are hardly digested by ruminant. Sawdust are used as an alternate feed for cattle and can be used as an animal bedding, fire starter, etc. Fermentation is defined as the metabolic process that produces the chemical chain in organic substrate through the action of enzyme. The fermentation of sawdust are used during the project to reduce the hardness and increase the rate of digestion. And we use the white fungi or ragi during the project. Okay, problem statement. Most research focus on the animal bedding and using sawdust as the medium for the growth of white mushroom. And some research mainly focus on the sawdust waste used as a substrate to produce cellulose via the solid state fermentation. There also a lot of study on the effect of moisture, oxygen temperature, and container size toward the hardness of sawdust during fermentation process. The objective of study. The objective are to investigate the relationship between the different variables during the fermentation process with hardness of the sawdust. Second is to investigate the sawdust hardness during the fermentation process. The third is to investigate the growth of sawdust during the fermentation process on different external variables. Okay, hypothesis. The first hypothesis is the higher gap of the different value of hardness of sawdust are the most different of moisture. Second hypothesis is the lower gap of different value of the hardness of sawdust are container size. Chapter 2, literature review. Okay. Sawdust. Wood industry play important role on the economic development of country. The rise of production of wood increase the waste of sawdust in the country. Plant biomass such as sawdust is being researched as one of the most desirable alternative raw material because of their low cost and easy availability. There are a lot of advantage of the employment of agro-industry waste as a substrate for bioconversion energy process. The use of agro-industrial as substrate contribute to the reduction of cost on enzyme production, at the same time increase the awareness of energy recycling and combustion. The nutritional value of sawdust based on the animal feed. Sawdust was one of the best source of dietary fiber for cattle. Using the conventional ingredients contain metabolic energy, crude protein, crude fiber, and ash content in the sawdust. In 1994, Ridwan stated that the nutritional value inside the sawdust consists of 2.53% of crude protein, 0.76% of ethyl extract, 60.26% of crude fiber, 24.53% of nitrogen-free extract, 0.8% of crude ash. Fiber material are merely a root of a dietary fiber, but rather contain effective extra nutrient essential for standard gut function. The addition of cellulose increases the special rate of growth by 50%. The hydrolysis of cellulose inside the alimentary kernel contribute to the growth of stimulant. Then increased feed consumption is typically related to the increasing of the dietary fiber. Fermentation process. Fermentation is a metabolic process that occurs by converting carbohydrate into energy with the absence of oxygen through the action of enzyme. Their primary means are to produce ATP for microorganisms by break down organic nutrients during the aerobic activity by using yeast as the medium. To produce, they produce carbon dioxide, fumate, and carboxylic acid. Fermentation process start with the NADH reaction with organic electroacceptor. Pyruvate was formed from sugar during the glycolysis process. During the fermentation, NADH reaction produce during the fermentation, NADH react with the oxygen to produce NAD plus and organic products such as ethanol, lactic acid, hydrogen gas, and carbon dioxide gas. They also, in rare occasion, there are more exotic product that were produced, such as butyric acid and acetone. But with the presence of oxygen, NADH and pyruvate generate ATP with respiration. These processes are called oxidative phosphorylation, and they produce more ATP compared to the glycolysis process. Okay, white fungi. White fungi or yeast are a eukaryotic single-cell microorganism that classified as the member of fungus kingdom. The diameter of the white fungus is varied based on the environment, typically in 3 or 4 micrometer, but some of them can be as big as 40 micrometer. Yeast are used to carry out the and fermentation activity. They produce asexually by mitosis or asymmetric division to become budding. Sclerosis cerevisiae are used to convert carbohydrate into CO2 gas and alcohol. Yeast also used during baking, the production of penicillin and wine making since the ancient time. And yeast or white fungi can take both forms, and they are called the diformic fungi. Okay, chapter 3, method and material. These are the material and equipment that are used during the project. Okay, the procedure for texture analysis of sawdust. The sawdust was stored inside the container, and we added the yeast and 150 ml of water to start the fermentation process. The sawdust was stored based on their variable, such as the size of container, the moisture, the presence of oxygen, and the temperature. After that, we label the container based on the variables as S1, S2, T1, T2, M1, M2, O1, and O2. The fermentation process takes 40 days to complete, and every day we record the hardness of the sample by using the texture analyzer. And after 40 days have passed, the data on the hardness of all sample was recorded, and we plotted a graph based on their variable. Okay, how to record the data? The hardness of the sawdust was measured by using the texture analyzer. Texture analyzer is a measurement system that moves in either up or down to compress or stretch the sample. After sawdust is poured with water, it hardens the structure and easily be measured by texture analyzer. How to inspect growth of white fungi? White fungus need favorable condition to grow, and the spore of the white fungus germinate inside the container. During the fermentation process, the growth of the white fungus was inspected, and the growth of the white fungus are used as the benchmark toward the effect of container size, temperature, moisture, and oxygen toward the hardness of sawdust. Chapter 4, Result and Discussion. This is the table on the result of the hardness of the sawdust based on their size container, temperature, moisture, and oxygen. Okay, this is the graph on the effect of size for the fermented sawdust. Based on the graph, the hardness of the sample 1, S1, is lower than S2. This is occurred due to the volume of oxygen less inside the container. S1 has a bigger gap of oxygen of air compared to S2, and both have the same weight. Okay, this graph is based on the effect or temperature of the fermented sawdust. Based on the graph, the hardness of T1 is lower than the T2. This is due to that T2 was stored in a low temperature area that stunted the growth of yeast and may kill the yeast cell. Okay. This graph is based on the effect of moisture toward the fermentation of sawdust. Based on that, the hardness of the hardness of the sample in M2 is lower than M1. This is occurred due to the difference of moisture inside the content. M2 have a higher water content compared to M1, and more water is equal to more fermentation process, and water are used as the medium to convert carbohydrate into the alcohol, lactic acid, and carbon dioxide gas. Okay. The effect of oxygen toward the fermentator. This graph show the effect of oxygen toward the fermented sawdust. Based on it, the hardness of O2, a sample on O2 is lower than N1 is due to the excessive presence of oxygen. Higher oxygen volume can have a positive influence toward the yeast cell, and they increase the consumption rate and total capacity of oxygen that are used by yeast during the fermentation process. Okay, this is the conclusion. Okay, conclusion, the hardness of sawdust can be influenced by the presence of oxygen, temperature, container size, and moisture. The excessive amount of moisture contributes to the lowest hardness value due to the water as the medium to convert solutes into alcohol, carbon dioxide gas, and lactic acid. Recommendation. Future research of the study on the hardness of sawdust with the different species of tree. Future research can be used this TC can be used as their baseline for their fermentation process of sawdust, and more research and chemical trial are needed toward the research and the effect of sawdust as animal feed toward the future farmer. This is the reference for my thesis, and that's it for me. Thank you.